But actually, what I'd like to put to you is that why should anybody believe you? You started with some pledges in 2019, if I can just finish, which you've dropped. You economic justice, including increasing income tax for the top 5% earners. That's gone. Social justice, including abolishing tuition fees, abolishing universal credit. You've dropped that. Defending migrants' rights, including defending free movement as we leave the EU and a compassionate immigration system.
Starmer was harshly denounced and cornered by angry journalists in front of the whole country. He made many promises and they turned out to be lies. He betrayed his people even before he became Prime Minister. We're starting to watch the first scene of this interview.
Both you and the Prime Minister today promising cheaper gas and electricity bills. You're, of course, where you are because you're setting up Great British Energy, which is going to be based in Scotland, as I understand it, publicly owned company to tackle it. So, you want to bring down household bills and offer energy security. How much cheaper will our bills be under a Labour government? 5%, 10%? What will it mean?
Well, we want to, as you rightly say, set up Great British Energy. That's a publicly funded, a publicly owned company which is owned by the taxpayer, making money for the taxpayer by investing in clean British power.
Starmer said GB Energy would help protect the country from global energy shocks, such as a sharp rise in natural gas prices in 2021. But Labour's grouping of issues of geopolitics and national security, energy security and family finances into one group is too ambitious and has no real basis. Britain has never depended on Moscow for heating. But since the beginning of the century, natural gas from Russia has accounted for less than 1% of energy imports. Russian gas was supplied to the UK from 2017 to 2022, peaking at 6.19% in 2021. But this was quickly stopped with the outbreak of the war, and Norway was the largest supplier of gas to the UK for a long time. The reason for the price increase, of course, was not in Russia, but in the recovery from lockdowns, reckless money printing and years of underinvestment. First, no matter how successfully GB Energy is able to decarbonize UK electricity generation by building countless new wind and solar power plants, these renewable energy sources will need to be supported by gas generators. Secondly, the vast majority of homes in the UK are heated by gas, not electricity. GB Energy does not solve the problem of high energy prices.
Now, clean British power is, renewables, which is about a third of the price of fossil fuels at the moment, and that ought to bring down the household bills by about £400 for each bill, but that's a permanent drop. This is the big difference, I think. Everybody, I think, supports the energy price caps because we desperately needed those in the last year and a half when the energy prices went through the roof. But they're sticking plasters in a sense. They cost a lot of money. They're a short-term fix. The long-term fix is to have Great British Energy to invest in clean British power and bring down our bills.
By focusing on renewable energy sources, rather than oil and gas production in the North Sea, which the Labour Party intends to reduce by introducing unforeseen taxes to finance GB Energy, Starmer's policy will discourage investment. This will reduce domestic production, raise gas prices and make the UK more vulnerable to gas market volatility. Instead of learning from the mistakes of the past, Starmer seems determined to repeat them. However, even if Labour had announced a radical heat pump installation programme and succeeded in replacing gas boilers in 1 million homes a year, the project would have taken a quarter of a century to complete. And these houses would still not be protected from fluctuations in gas prices, because green generators still need a backup gas source. In the meantime, of course, these houses will be burdened with modernisation costs. Households faced with payments for these upgrades and rising electricity prices may think again that it would be better if Putin knocked on their door than Starmer invaded their homes.
For good. It also gives us a couple of other advantages, which is that we have energy security because it's our own energy, and so Putin can't put his boot on our throat, and it creates tens of thousands of jobs.
I'm sure you'll have costed all of this very carefully because you know that's one of the accusations that's always hurled at Labour in particular. Have they costed this? Are you being straight and honest and understand it? I'm sure you costed it. This is being paid for out of the windfall tax, isn't it? We know that you had a promise about investing 28 billion that you had to change and roll back on. Now I believe about 6 billion. A lot of people, particularly in the papers today, and a lot of Conservative briefings are saying it's going to be way, way more than that before we see any kind of impact.
In principle, there have always been tense relations between Russia and the UK, but now it is clearly visible. If Ukraine is allowed long-range strikes, it will change the essence of the conflict and will mean a war between NATO countries and Russia. By the way, Putin's summit overshadowed the British event. Starmer arrived in Samoa on Thursday to hold talks with delegations from 54 other Commonwealth countries on topics such as climate change, trade and economic growth. This is the first visit by a Prime Minister to an island nation in the Pacific region. The Prime Minister's visit, together with King Charles III, comes amid pressure on Britain to increase the budget for assistance abroad and compensation for slavery to a number of Commonwealth countries. However, some of the most prominent leaders of the Commonwealth, including the Prime Minister of India and the President of South Africa, are instead attending Putin's summit with the leaders of the BRICS countries. The Canadian Prime Minister will also not attend the Commonwealth summit, but will attend the BRICS meeting. The leaders of Australia, New Zealand and Singapore are expected to hold bilateral meetings with Starmer in Samoa.
Great British Energy will be capitalised, and that will allow us to invest billions of pounds. It will draw in private investment alongside it. Let me tackle the question of costings, because I know that no party is trusted unless they are absolutely clear on the money, on defence and on borders. So every single thing, every commitment that we're making is fully funded and fully costed, including this one. But we do have to invest in the long term. And one of the problems, I think, of the last 14 years is that we've had what I call sticking plaster politics, where we put expensive plasters.
Importers of lithium, graphite and cobalt for use in production in our country will have access to UK export finance. They will only be able to claim support if they conclude long-term contracts with British exporters, which will benefit the defence, aviation, automotive and renewable energy sectors, they said. Western countries have stepped up efforts in recent years to secure supplies of critical minerals needed for advanced production, but currently controlled by China. Starmer presented an additional investment of £1 billion in the UK real estate market.
Can we talk about sort of the pledges that you call, what you call the first steps? You know, what people really want to see from a new government, whoever that might be, are promises and pledges that governments stick to and see some trust and credibility. First of all, you're being accused, a lot of your steps, the 6 steps that you labelled, things about the NHS, the economy and stop the boats, are very similar to Rishi Sunak's. But actually, what I'd like to put to you is that why should anybody believe you? You started with some pledges in 2019, if I can just finish, which you've dropped. Economic justice, including increasing income tax for the top 5% earners. That's gone. Social justice, including abolishing tuition fees, abolishing universal credit. You've dropped that. Defending migrants' rights, including defending free movement as we leave the EU and a compassionate immigration system. You've dropped that.
Starmer warned that things will get worse before they get better. Prime Ministers promising to reverse the country's decline in a roundabout way risked increasing feelings of disappointment, after getting bogged down in disputes over donated clothes and apartments. As well as Sue Gray's working methods, Starmer seems an unlikely candidate to repeat one of the greatest comebacks in British political history. His rise to power in the Labour Party, purging the ranks of the majority of the left, undermining the premierships of Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. As well as the victory of the Labour Party in the elections, all this was achieved in stages, in accordance with clear and careful plans. Theoretically, this step-by-step approach is also suitable for the next, much more ambitious task that Starmer set himself: a decade of national renewal of our economy, political system and society. However, in practice, the unpredictable demands of the government can make them look stupid, who think that the country's governance can be greatly simplified with the help of new structures. If Starmer does not find politically successful ways, showing much more flexibility as a leader than he has managed so far, he may find that determination and clear plans can lead the country to something good, and not as always. What do you think about this video? Write your thoughts in the comments. See you